Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Today we have Mexico City-based designer Joel Escalona in conversation with New York City-based Joe Doucet. They will be speaking about their industrial design practice and their parallels, and we're very excited to have them both. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, how do we do this? Yeah, there we go. All right, hi everyone. Thank you for coming. There, can you hear me? And no, I have to apologize first and foremost. I have a fairly bad cold, so I'm going to do my best to power through it and speak in a way that you can hear me. But just so you know, I'm not going through puberty. It's a cold. Okay, I'm doing my best here. So, and you know, very, very excited to be here and to get to speak next to this gentleman, whom I consider one of Mexico's finest designers, and you know, a little bit of a shared history. And I treasure more than anything the opportunity to sit and have this dialogue and have you all be witness to it. But as a starting point, I believe we're each going to show you a very brief presentation on our work so that you have some kind of context about, you know, who we are, what we do, and why we're up here talking to you. So as soon as we get this on screen, we're gonna go. All right. Okay. So again, my name is Joe Doucet, and I am a multidisciplinary designer based in New York. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there we go. All right, I'm going to drive here. So I'm going to take you briefly through a series of projects that I think illustrate both the approach we take to design and the varied types of projects that we work with in the studio. And then, you know, later on, you know, we'll talk about some specific things that we have on view here for the first time in Mexico City. So project number one, this is a program that we did for Braun. And if anyone has a familiarity with design history, Braun is one of the most venerable design brands in history, led by the late and great Dieter Rams, which was one of the most challenging projects I ever worked on, just simply because it is so intimidating to have to follow a person like Dieter Rams. It's probably like the next designer coming in at Apple, having to follow Jonathan Ive. So as part of that, we decided to bring back a very robust approach to design. So what you're seeing here is a toaster, right? And it has a slant to it. And the reason why it has a slant to it is not only because it makes it easier to get toast in and out, creates a nice profile that you can recognize, but allows it to be set up against walls as living spaces are getting smaller and smaller globally. And therefore, you know, you can basically minimize counter space. So the whole program for Braun was just a series of small innovations to try to reinvigorate what it meant to have a leadership position in design. So from there, we created everything from redeveloping home phones. You see I've got Dieter Rams' actual number on there. It's a little known secret. I'm letting you into it, so take a picture. To music systems. And we created an entire program and ethos around this. You know, everything has a primary function, so we really narrowed down the approach entirely to just a few distinct forms: intelligent thought and design, and progress. So, and one of the things we do a lot are projects that are much less about traditional industrial design and more about design as a statement ethos. So I was approached by a group who put together basically a nonprofit to auction off items for hurricane relief victims. And so I decided that what I would do would be to create a beautiful object that would come to auction and that would remind you of, you know, how fragile your everyday state is, that any moment you could be one of these people in that state. So I simply created a mirror that creates a certain sense of refraction. So whenever you stand in front of it, well, it appears like you're almost drowning underwater. Very poetic. And we developed everything from, I mean, here's a series of playing cards that we did called Minim. And this was an in-house study in trying to understand how far you can reduce something before it becomes completely unintelligible. So with the playing cards, it's something that's iconic, something that's universal. We really developed a series that we reduced them down to where there was really little else that you could take off of them, including when you're playing cards, all you really need are the upper edges. And you need some indication that your card's not facing the other way, so you're showing your cards to another person. And that's where this single diagonal line comes from, because regardless of the orientation, it's always in the same place and would allow you to understand the orientation of the cards. And it went from just a little studio project internally to one of the best-selling objects for AreaWare, who put in production. I'm really proud of this system. It's a furniture system built for new offices that we designed and developed for a Swedish company called Scandiform. And why I'm really proud about it is that not only does it allow the end user to completely customize it, it has lighting which snaps on the legs, tables which can be configured, PowerPoint plug units that can be reconfigured on the fly. But the way it was designed, it can actually be assembled in the shipping warehouse. So why this is important is when you have big pieces of furniture, they come from a manufacturer, they get in cargo boats, they go and take up a great deal of volume, they go and sit in a warehouse, then in that warehouse they go to a shipping and distribution center, and you've multiplied their carbon footprint by 3 times. Unnecessarily, and the fact that the development of these, everything zips on, the legs snap together, the tables snap together, and they're put together by the shippers. So when one is ordered, it's basically custom and goes out, and we've reduced the carbon footprint of this entire office system by 3-fold just through thinking about how products get delivered, and it sits very well too. This is a fun project we did. It's a series of wine chillers that we did for Wallpaper Magazine for their annual handmade exhibit in Milan. And what was interesting about it is, I wanted to create something that would, reduce the effects of the loss and dissipation of heat, but do it in a very interesting way. And we actually worked with we developed a very new type of software to be able to make these, and the pattern on there is actually taken from wind maps of the different wine growing regions where this wine comes from, and we developed a specific algorithm to be able to map that and mine that and allow it to be CNC milled on there for the first time. 6. And we developed everything. This is a new type of wind turbine we developed and actually took a lot of patents. What was interesting about this wind turbine and the new technologies that were developed from it is that twofold. One, instead of using traditional ball bearings, it uses electromagnets because it generates its own energy, which brings the actual friction down to near zero. And the second is the actual turbine itself is placed on the ground, so it can be serviced by a guy in a truck and not necessarily have to be in a place. And so this is one of those projects that where the intellectual property generated from it were much more so than the actual design. Is that my alert? I'm going over? All right. We've worked on everything from barware to developed a tie collection that uses 3D knitting for the first time, where you put in the height and the type of knot you tie, and this design element of a tie bar will be in exactly the same place and same position, which could only be used by this technology. We developed air-dropped, basically temporary shelters that can be airdrop shipped and popped up and could be developed for under $5 each and deployed anywhere in the world in minutes. To a new brand of home goods, homewares, where everything is made using the latest technology in 3D printing called Other, which is essentially how you and I got to meet, right? So that's just a brief overview of what some of the work that we do in the studio, and thank you for, I hope you could hear a little bit of that. A little came through. It's time to take my medicine. And I'll hand it over to Rob.
wait until the noise?
Yeah, it was a little difficult to hear me.
I'm gonna talk in Spanish if you don't mind. My jokes are better in Spanish, so I have a lot of jokes. Hola a todos, bienvenidos. Muchas gracias por la invitación, Ceci. Estoy muy emocionado de estar exponiendo por primera vez aquí en ZsONAMACO. Y bueno, yo solamente voy a hablar de pocos proyectos, y más que mis proyectos es acerca de la forma en la que hago cosas, la forma en la que pienso. Y este es un proyecto muy importante para mí porque este es un render de mis primeros renders, de las primeras proyectos que trataba de hacer, pero más que como proyecto de diseño industrial, era yo intentando hacer cosas en computadora, aprendiendo a hacer renders, básicamente. Cómo hacer luz, plástico y una idea X, sin importar. Me gustó mucho la imagen, me gustó mucho el render, que lo decidí poner en mi portafolio, así que no puse nada más, solo puse bomba USB en mi portafolio, hecha por Escalona, y estuvo alrededor de un mes cuando una página en internet lo vio y le empezó a interpretar, y luego otra página lo vio y le dio otro significado. Unos decían que era mi reinterpretación hacia mi infancia, y otros decían que era el nuevo gadget diseñado por Escalona, y otros inclusive decían que era una protesta hacia la industria de la tecnología y cómo en algún punto la tecnología nos iba a destruir. Entonces era muy intenso, pero también había quienes les interesaba el objeto y me preguntaban, ¿y cuánto cuesta? ¿Y dónde lo puedo comprar? Y pues obviamente no les hacía caso, hasta que alguien de alguna manera me dijo, tengo una tienda en Rusia, me interesaría comprarte varias para poder comercializarlas. Y pues fue cuando, bueno, pues tal vez podría ponerlas en producción. Decidí contratar un proveedor lejano en Asia, que se me hizo muy fácil enviar mi archivo 3D. Ellos lo fabricaron en un mes y me resolvieron todo, la producción, la USB, el empaque, y después les dije, oye, ¿y también podrías mandarlos a Rusia? Y ellos, claro, sin problema. Entonces, eventualmente los vendí, solamente me mandaron a mí 200 y son los únicos que yo tuve. Yo nunca vendí esas piezas aquí en México, todas las que tenía las estuve regalando. Y se me hacía muy curioso cómo la gente de alguna manera comentaba o le daba algún significado distinto a ese proyecto. Algunos decían cosas de mi infancia, cosas de ideología, y algunos lo querían comprar. Entonces se volvió un proyecto muy grande, simplemente era un ejercicio, y al final esto fue lo que resultó. Realmente se me hace muy interesante cómo las ideas de una persona pueden tener tanto impacto. Y para hacer esta presentación, de alguna manera me di a la tarea de buscar bomba USB a ver qué pasaba, hecha por Escalona. Y hay páginas en Asia que venden este producto, que muy probablemente utilizan mis moldes, muy probablemente inclusive utilizan mis mismos renders, y ellos venden lotes de al menos 500 piezas y te los entregan en una semana. Yo me tardé en hacer el proyecto un par de meses. No vendí más de 200 piezas, pero se me hace muy emocionante cómo las ideas de alguien pueden llegar tan lejos, cómo una pequeña imagen, el poder que podría tener ese concepto. Y pues si quieren alguna bomba USB, pueden entrar en Alibaba y comprar un lote de 500 piezas, poner el logo de su empresa y utilizarlo. Otro proyecto que se me dice muy interesante y que habla mucho de mi práctica como diseñador industrial es intentar encontrar distintas maneras de que un proyecto nos guste. Una empresa de materiales se acercó conmigo y me dijo, tenemos estos 3 tableros, ¿qué puedes diseñar con estos 3 tableros para que nosotros podamos de alguna manera presentarlo y comercializarlo más? Después de varias ideas llegamos a esto. Se hizo una exhibición, es un mueble donde le di la misma relevancia que usualmente le doy a todos los proyectos. Le sacamos fotografías por todos lados, por adelante, por atrás, y eventualmente igual lo subí a mi portafolio y una empresa extranjera se le hizo muy interesante y me dijo, oye, me gusta mucho esa idea, ¿por qué no de alguna manera lo trabajamos y lo podemos meter a nuestro portafolio? Así que después de hacer muchas variantes, muchas opciones, esta empresa francesa que se llama Roche-Bobois me decía, es que de alguna manera nosotros queremos entrar al mercado latino, crecer más nuestras ventas en ese segmento de mercado, y se nos hace una estrategia interesante el contratar a un diseñador latino o mexicano para que nos diseñe algo. Entonces, haznos algo grande, vistoso, llamativo, pero piensa que tal vez no vamos a vender mucho, vamos a generar mucha prensa y mucho movimiento, pero no te esperes tanto del tema de las ventas. Y pues yo encantado de poder trabajar con una empresa francesa así de grande, pues de todos modos está encantado. Terminamos diseñando esta cajonera, que es muy grande, es muy voluminosa, pero también es muy vistosa y tuvo mucho éxito mediático, pero de alguna manera tuvo mucho éxito o sigue teniendo mucho éxito comercial, donde en un principio pretendíamos hacer 500 piezas, pasamos el límite de las 500 y entonces el dueño fue como, bueno, ahora diséñame algo que tú creas que se puede vender muy bien. Entonces empezamos a hacer más cosas con ellos, donde nos decía, tengo un proveedor de termoformado, un material, un proceso, ¿qué puedes hacer con eso? Estos son algunos prototipos de otros muebles que empezamos a hacer y eventualmente ya estamos haciendo recurrentemente, anualmente, series o colecciones de muebles con ellos que pues ellos están encantados porque de alguna manera me avisan o me dicen, ¿sabes qué? Tenemos un fabricante en tal parte del mundo que hace cosas con este material, nos interesa hacer mesas, sillas, sillones con este tipo de procesos, ¿qué puedes hacer tú que tú creas que se puede vender? Entonces este es el tipo de cosas que usualmente trato de hacer con empresas que no solamente es un tema extranjero, sino para mí es como trabajar con la industria, como diseñador industrial. Entonces, pues ahorita llevamos varias colecciones que ellos distribuyen alrededor del mundo y a mí se me hace muy interesante que cómo también un diseñador basado en la Ciudad de México puede exportar no solamente productos, sino también puede exportar ideas, puede exportar diseño. Otro proyecto, que este es el último del que les voy a enseñar, que se me hace muy importante el intentar trabajar con la industria, el intentar trabajar, más bien, el hacer cosas con la industria, cosas en producción masiva, cosas que la gente va a utilizar pero que también puede accesar. Y hay una empresa que usualmente fabrica productos muy accesibles, pero se están quedando sin productos que vender. Y esta es uno de sus pequeñas máquinas, de sus pequeños troqueles, donde caen toneladas y toneladas de peso sobre una lámina para generar una olla o un sartén. Y se me hace muy interesante porque me contactaron, me volaron a la planta productiva, me explicaron acerca del proceso y me dijeron, oye, ¿qué puedes hacer tú con esto para que nosotros tengamos productos más actuales, productos nuevos, que no tengamos que invertir en un tema de comprar maquinaria nueva, invertir en ingenieros extranjeros, sino qué puedes hacer tú con esto que nosotros podemos fabricar y hacer productos que la gente quiera comprar? Y de alguna manera, obviamente, después de años de estar trabajando con distintos clientes, con distintas empresas, hacer nuestro benchmark, miles y miles y miles de opciones, entender muy bien cómo funciona el proceso, pues tratar de presentar lo más claro nuestras ideas. Llegamos a prototipos y terminamos con esta colección, que es uno de mis proyectos de los cuales me siento mucho más orgulloso porque es un producto, es un objeto súper sencillo, súper cotidiano, que su predecesor está en la casa de todo el mundo, al menos de México y Latinoamérica, y este es, digamos, como el hijo nuevo, donde ellos en un testeo de algunos años, en un testeo de al menos unos año y medio, han hecho, no sé, un proceso muy largo de comunicaciones, un proceso muy largo de distribución, y pues estoy muy orgulloso de que no solamente lo diseñé, también salgo en la campaña. No es cierto, curiosamente escogieron un tipo muy similar a mí, y se me hace muy curioso ver este tipo de anuncios en camiones, en el metro, en los folletos que dan del súper que avientan en las casas, y me emociona mucho cómo también promueven y cómo empujan a que la gente que lo fabrica, la gente que lo comercializa se sienta orgulloso de que son productos diseñados, fabricados y comercializados en México y posiblemente en el extranjero. Y como les decía, justamente el año pasado es el primer año que están como testeando las ventas con ellos y han podido vender más de 5 millones de piezas. Para mí eso es muy importante, el hecho de lo que tendría que hacer un diseñador mexicano con la industria nacional. Y tal vez no solamente con la industria nacional. El punto es, para mí, el valor de las ideas, qué tanto impacto podrían tener, conceptual, económica o inclusive socialmente. Y bueno, muchas gracias. ¿Paquito?
It's all right. Really impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, I had no idea about this, the last project that you showed. I mean, it was fascinating to watch the entire process.
It's weird for me because in a way that's something that I wanted to do when I was studying industrial design here in Mexico, and everybody was telling me it's not possible, it's really difficult. It's really difficult if you want to try, if you want to design for big companies, not only in Mexico, not only in America, worldwide. And I was like, fuck it, I want to do it. I really want to build a practice that I want to do all the stuff that I think I can do. So yeah, I've been trying to design my design studio as another that I haven't seen in here.
I mean, first of all, it's very impressive that you were able to make that project happen. But I do understand what you mean when you talk about it's very difficult to work with big companies, and I understand why people warn you off on that because it's hugely challenging to be able to find the right types of partners to work with. I find that being one of the most challenging things as a designer, because the work can only have the impact, can only be as good, both aesthetically and in the higher sense of good, as the partners you work with. And large companies can tend to be a bit challenging in the sense that they have a lot more power in the dynamic. But it seems like you found a way around that.
Yeah, perhaps you feel familiar with the thing that, in a way, you don't feel. Sometimes you don't feel as a basic designer, but you feel like a business advisor that use design in order to boost sales, in order to boost production, in order to make a better company.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I find it key that when you're beginning a project to really clearly forget about what you're designing. Like, forget about the object itself. You know, what are you setting out to do here? Why are you involved with this company, and what are you two trying to achieve together out of this project? You know, and define that very, very clearly. And you know, that's sort of the absolute key, because if it's, some projects need to be about designing something, reducing the cost to the barest minimum so that you can get margins high because you need to get X amount of volume. Some of it is sometimes it's about a piece that you know is not necessarily going to sell very well, but it's going to be a marketing and communications tool for the company and both for yourself. It's aligning those goals in the very beginning, you know, allow you to direct the project, I think, very clearly. Where things get murky is when you try to do everything. You're like, I want to have a piece that's going to be in the cover of every magazine, and it's going to sell, you know, $1 trillion in 2018. And you know, it's a little more challenging. I think, yeah, clearly defining goals is sort of the key to success, I think, in those relationships.
I wonder, I know really well your practice, and somehow I have find like a big opportunity in working in here in Mexico because we are an industrialized country. But how is the dynamic working in the U.S. Where not always all the companies have their factories in there?
Yeah, it's odd. You know, the U.S. does not have the ability to manufacture anymore. I just came back from a trip to China, where I was in the big factory area in Shindong, China, and I've been to China many times, and I've been to the factories there many times. What's happened over the last 10 years is remarkable. The abilities that these Chinese factories have that the American factories don't. You couldn't make an iPhone in America. You couldn't do it. Even if you were willing to pay $10,000 for one, we just don't have the ability to manufacture in America. And so, all you have is intellectual property. But, what you're seeing is countries that traditionally were exporting manufacturing to, that they're growing their own talent. They don't need intellectual property from anywhere else. And I think that's one of the wonderful things to see in Mexico is that the talent base here is world class. It's as good as you'd find anywhere. But you have the ability to actually do the manufacturing here as well. It's a real opportunity.
Yeah, because it's really easy, it's really fast to go to the factory and to see the actual product, because I'm also working with a US company that make watches, and they told me design a watch for me, and I was sending the drawings, and he was like, no, don't send me a really detailed drawing, just send me a rendering, and I will send it to China. They will produce it. They will send me back the sample, and I will send you back the sample to Mexico City. Right. And it's a really weird process for me because I'm triangulating the information, but it's exciting also because it's a different way of working. For example, with the French companies that I send the drawing to them, they produce it also in France.
Right. Yeah.
And it's also weird because I design it in here, they produce it in France, and then they make the furniture and then bring it to here, to Mexico City, and they sell it in here also.
Yeah, that's fascinating, right?
Yeah, and all my carpenters are like, can we make that we can make that kind of things, and I'm like, well, you can't, but, well, that one you can't, but it's strange, but it's the way it is.
The supply chain is something that I struggle with, long as a designer, in the sense that, there was a study done by the British Design Council about 8 years ago, and it laid out what we all basically understand, that 70% of the environmental impact in any produced good is basically completely dictated in the design process. So as designers, we are responsible for 70% through our decisions and the decisions of the manufacturer, 70% of the environmental impact of any object that you see around you. And design basically is everything in the built world. It's the carpet you're sitting on, it's the chair you're sitting on, it's the watch you're wearing, it's the plates you eat off of, it's the screens you have at your laptop. That's a huge responsibility we have. And that was one of the impetuses of starting Other, was basically localized manufacturing. I think is going to be the wave of the future, and technologies will allow us to, especially emerging technologies like 3D printing can allow something to be produced not just in a certain country, but ultimately in your own home.
That's something that is interesting for me, that I would like to know. What is your purpose in making a company? I mean,
quite honestly,
you have to be a designer, you have to be a producer, you have to be a seller, you have to be a spokesperson, you have to be all that kind of roles. Right. So it's difficult, Alright. So you try to make everything. How difficult is it?
Yeah, I mean, it helps to be a little bit crazy and a little bit insane. But yeah, no, it's. I just felt like somebody had to do it. Somebody had to do it well, and show the way about how a product brand could be developed in the 21st century. about putting the power back in the hands of the designers and the talents and away from the traditional corporate structure, and raising the bar, raising the barrier to entry in terms of how designers are compensated and their role and control in the world. And I felt the only way to do it was just to build a company.
And it's funny because you are now in the other side dealing with designers.
Yeah, that's I realize that's a challenging part. I wouldn't want to deal with me as a designer. But yeah, no, there's a bit of that. But I quickly learned to divorce myself and totally separate my role out from the daily dealings of designers, because designers, there are only like 100 in the world that are doing a certain level of work. And we all know each other and we're all friends. And it's really hard to tell your friends, like, no, you can't do that. So I learned to step out of that role a bit.
I know. We are difficult sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's something I try to teach in the universities where I teach, that designers are not only the makers of beautiful things, or the makers of things that will be in magazines, but they have to be aware that somebody is going to produce it, somebody is going to sell it, and somebody have to earn money besides them with that project. So it's a really big responsibility that sometimes they don't have the idea how big is it.
Right. Yeah, it's a super challenge. You know, that designing, let's face it, it's the fun part of all of that equation. But the repercussions of everything that we do and everything that we put out. And I think that, you know, one of the biggest challenges, you can design something so amazing and you can find out how to make it very effectively. And, you know, everyone has these wonderful ideas. And the point is, okay, I can realize this idea. Guess what? I've just had 10,000 made. They show up at a warehouse, and now what? You know, that's the thing that no one thinks about, is what happens then? Is there a market for this? Are these things just going to sit and take up resources in warehouse space? Because an object that's sitting in a warehouse is a strain on resources, and it's actually, you know, comes up negative on the for the companies and in terms of their inventory. And should an object be produced is one of the few questions that is rarely taught in design schools. It's not could you, it's should you. And it's something that I rarely hear and something that I talk about a lot.
What are the biggest challenge that the American designer, North American designer has?
The biggest challenges?
Yeah.
Well, we don't work in America. I mean, there are no companies to work with in America. No one makes anything anymore.
Really?
I mean, very few. You either do big contract furniture. Contract furnishings are office furniture. You know, these types of chairs you sit in, the things that don't go in your home but go in office, that's contract furniture. And we have a lot of big ones in the U.S. I find that work incredible. I've done a few, and people make a very good living doing it, but, you know, it's tedious.
But what about the young designers, the designers that are studying industrial design and want to do stuff? What are they doing?
They have two career paths when you design when you graduate as a designer in America. You can go work for a studio, take a big job at an industrial firm or a smaller studio, like, you know, someone like my studio, for example, and try to cut your teeth and learn the business there, and then try to start your own practice eventually, or just work in the corporate society forever. Or you become a maker. You become a maker designer. So you make your own lighting and you try to sell it on sites. And there's a huge community of makers. And it's because that out of school, you really only have those two choices. You know, we don't have any grants. There is no government support for designers in this country like there are in, let's say, France or the Netherlands or Scandinavian countries, where you can basically go and you don't really have to worry about work. You know, you're gonna get a stipend from the government. There, you just graduated with $150,000 of student debt. You might make a job at $20,000 a year starting. Like, you better hustle. You better work if you want to, like, make a living as a designer. It's a terrible job, and very few are going to succeed. but it takes. But if you have, and the thing I would say to students, don't do this. If you're making a choice between jobs, this is not the one. If you have no choice, if you have to do this, then do it, and you're gonna work harder than anyone else, but you are gonna make it. You'll succeed.
And talking about students, what is your vision, or what is your vision of the state of the education and design in the U.S.?
I think there are some very fine design programs in the U.S. That wasn't the case many years ago. I think we have a handful of very good schools. I think I went to one of them, the Art Center. I think it's a fairly good school. RISD is probably one of the best in the world, but there are great design programs popping up all over. It's not just Italy and Scandinavia and France anymore. There are a lot of great design programs. One of the challenges is that there are too many good design programs. There's something like no one knows the exact statistic, but you have to imagine that there has to be at least 500,000 million designers graduating each year all over the world. For how many jobs? Like, there aren't that many. It's an incredibly competitive field. So, yeah. So, I mean, what do you think? What is the state of design education in Mexico?
The state of design in Mexico, it's weird, because I think most of the design schools try to. There are very good schools that make really good designers for a context that I think doesn't exist here in Mexico. They try to make designers in a scheme that probably will work in Europe, but here no. That's something that I'm really moved by that, and that's why I try to do my best, doing my best job, doing industrial design here in Mexico and with foreign companies, but also trying to teach that in the universities where I teach. So because it's really sad that a design student in a conference or in the university asked me, well, do you think that we will make a living as a designer?
What do you say?
And I'm like, yes, you can. I mean, yes, you can do it, because Mexico has a lot of opportunities as an industrialized country, but and not only here, they can do it everywhere, because the programs are really good. I mean, I'm really convinced that the design schools in Mexico are really good, but sometimes the ideas that they have, that they want to be in magazines, they want to be in blogs, they want to be perhaps in the TV, is the wrong one. But they are really capable of doing things, and I think it's our responsibility to not just teach that in the classroom, but also doing the stuff.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that naturally I think stand out about design in Mexico, as far as I from an outside point of view, is the breadth of work. It seems like here designers are more free to, I'll design a building, I'll design tableware, I'll design consumer electronics, I'll do furniture and fashion. You see a lot of really great talent, but it seems to be natural to not specialize in one niche area, which happens in a lot of other countries. You have people who just do furniture design or just do, interior design. But I've noticed a lot of the really great talent here that you work across so many different.
Yeah. But it's because I really like what I do, but that's also something that I really try to teach to the students, that they don't have to be that Philip Stark that trying to make buildings, cars, bicycles, clothes, that you find something that you are really good at and go for it. Build that ability, build that knowledge, and specialize if that is your thing, But if you are able to make clothes and furniture and talk a little bit about business, try to work in a company, try to make a living in sales. I mean, for me, it's finding that perspective that it's aligned to your abilities and what you are really, really, really good at.
Right.
And sometimes I find in my classroom talking about philosophy and personality and the self. And I think it's really important because it's a way that you can be really good at everything at what you want. So I think it's possible.
Do you find a lot of the companies based in Mexico who are making actual end-use products open to having a discussion with the designer, that they're actively searching, or is it something are there any barriers that you find, or is it?
Yes,
Yeah.
I find it when I was starting. I understand really fast that you don't if you knock the door asking for job, they will not open the door. But if you knock the door with a business plan or with a business idea or with a great design, they will understand. And when you go and talk to them, I think I understand how you produce. I think I understand how you make stuff, and I think I understand that what you need, and I can help you doing that. They are really, really, really open. When you talk with them about business, when you talk about sales, they are really interested because everybody wants to sell. So everybody wants to make a stuff that they can produce, that they can sell, and that people want. So it's
Fantastic.
That for me, that's the way.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. Okay, I got 5 minutes for yeah. No, it was fantastic, and I'm shocked if anyone can hear me, but I'm doing my best here. But should we open it up for questions for anyone from the audience? God, I sound like a 13-year-old boy.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Wait. Yes.
Some of your next projects.
Well, I'd like to tell you very quickly about one here that I'm very excited about, that have just launched for the first time, with Odebashian, who I'm sure you're all familiar with, but makes the most exquisite rugs in very traditional fashion. It's our second collaboration with them. And we created a series of 4 different rugs that were really motivated. It's almost a political statement in a way, where the entire series is really dedicated to, sorry if you can hear me, I'm getting a signal you can't. But it's dedicated to be in support of transgender rights. And this is a topic that was very much in reaction to a tweet I read from President Trump, where he immediately went out and banned all transgender people from the military. And, being a designer, sometimes you feel like, okay, I can make something look nice, but what can I really do? What can I really affect? And can a rug really affect any kind of change like that? Well, you know what? It can. I believe in a very humble way that as a designer, we have a responsibility, because we're producing things in the world, we're putting things out in the world. We have a responsibility to allow, like, whatever the celebrity or message we've obtained, to be able to be somewhat outspoken, and when you see something wrong, to have to do something about it. And sometimes that can be marching with a sign, and sometimes that can be designing really beautiful rugs, so I think they're very nice. So that's something that we're very proud of. It's actually just right down the 4 or 5 spaces down at Odebashian's booth. And it's really, really wonderful working with this company again, and with Jaime in particular, who's become a very good friend over the years. So I'm very proud. What about you? What are you working on?
Well, wow. We also we are exhibiting here in ZsONAMACO Design. In a ways, we are showing stuff that we're showing stuff that we collaborate with different companies, and we are actually working with them in actual products. We are making products in silver, we are making products in glass, we are producing some products in ceramic with different clients, and while we are working with them making that, we also work with them making this exhibition. So it's like a collaborative project where they are really interested in the things that we do, that because they are really happy because they sell really well, so they in a way are really interested in this kind of art projects.
And where is it? What's it called? I want to see it.
Well, it's down there. but-
Okay, it's down there. We'll go over. Okay, fantastic.
Otra pregunta.
Really, it's news to me. Yeah, I mean, I'll take a stab at that. The question was if everyone could hear it, around, the physical versus digital form. There's a lot of new, obviously in Silicon Valley where there are so many new companies. The reason why you'll see a lot of products without physical form is because they're very easy to get funding for. It's very easy to raise capital for digital projects because they're quite cheap to do. Hardware is very expensive and very risky. You have to invest millions of dollars to get a physical product in market, whereas software is just ones and zeros. You get some coders in a corner and you can release a product in a month. So the fact that there's a huge capital expenditure means that there's a much higher risk for doing physical product, and that is why you see fewer of them, I think. But why? When they do succeed, they succeed very, very well. And when obviously like the failures that you have become very, very public, because Juicero is a big company that made a physical hardware product to make a better juicer in Silicon Valley, valued at $1 billion at launch, raised over $250 million. It was a terrible product that no one needed. And it was incredibly expensive when you would just squeeze the juice out. And it really tainted hardware for funding for probably the next 3 years. Sorry. It's a perfect example of that, but I'm going to turn this over to you.
Bueno, nosotros tratamos de ser congruentes con nuestro contexto, y creo que la mejor forma de describirlo es high concept, low technology, donde las necesidades son distintas, los medios son distintos, la infraestructura es distinta. Entonces es nuestro deber como diseñadores o creadores ser congruentes con esas necesidades, con esa gente, con esos presupuestos y con lo que nos rodea.
All right, let's do our best. All right.
Take notice, put products out, focused on more experience.
Well, I'll give you a short answer. Yes, it is the switch from experience to, the physical acquisition of goods is something that it's a trend that has been noted and something that's in almost every brief that we talk about. I think that it's an argument around quality versus quantity. I think that you'll find the younger generation, they want fewer and better things. They want to know the story behind how something is created. It's not just about the end product, and it's not just is this beautiful, expensive. It's like, how was it made? Where did it come from? Where is materials from? What is the design story behind it? Why is it that color? Where was it produced? Story is product experience, and it's sort of it's the value add that thoughtful design brings. It allows you to connect with an object that you might otherwise see as a commodity. And so that's something we always try to imbue in every one of our projects. It just comes naturally.
Yo creo que de nuevo es el tema de ser coherente y no solamente hablar del objeto o de lo material y no solamente acerca de la experiencia, sino también acerca del negocio detrás del proyecto. Y eso es lo que hace que la práctica de un diseñador como la práctica de un diseñador nuevo o joven o contemporáneo creo que tendría que ser.